Okay, so there are a couple of songs that really jumped out at me. All right, so first was The Ghost of Glasgow, which was especially fascinating with you two because you wrote it and Barrett sings lead.
Mm-hmm.
Did you specifically write it for him to sing, or was that a later decision?
That was a later decision, but I mean, I think it was pretty clear as we started working on it. That was a song that sort of fit Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know we went around and around a lot on it. You know, just as far as like, what is this story like? What's like small tweaks, but tweaks that are really really important. You know, and I think a luxury with this band as a songwriter is you get to keep on crafting a song, as it works its way sort of into the band's repertoire. So, people are constantly asking questions about it or bringing ideas or all that stuff. So yeah, very much like, and still even, once we bring them on stage, they're still sort of a live entity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is one of the fun things about it.
It's funny that you say that specifically about Ghost of Glasgow, because that was the one song that our producer, Daryl Scott, like, as we were starting to record it and talking about this and that, and everybody in the band, of course, had like a lot of opinions about things about it. And Daryl stopped at some point and was like, do y'all always talk this much? So he also said something to the effect of like, I've never worked with a band where everybody said it in a nice way, and he meant it in a nice way, where everybody had so many opinions. Everybody was so involved in the songwriting process and like contributing. And that song was no exception. Everybody had ideas about what it's about and how it should go. Yeah. Yeah, we work well in that way together, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then, when you found out you were going to sing lead, was there any changes you made or questions you had as far as, all right, I'm going to be attacking this line this way? Is that what you intended? And
Yeah. I mean, all the songs that I sing in the band, I think almost all the songs that I sing in the band are songs that Graham wrote, and now we've been doing that process for a number of years. So it doesn't always go this simply or cleanly, but typically it's like, especially if it's a song I really, really like that Graham has written, I really gravitate towards, I'll just take it and like, I'll listen to Graham's version of it one last time and then stop listening to it and like live with it for a while and come up with my own version of it and bring it back and be like, this is how I play this song by whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I like it. And I change this, I change that. And I'll do that with a song and then sometimes not end up being the person who's singing it. It's just kind of I'm a cog in the machine of the song. Graham writes the songs. Aaron now writes a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Graham writes, throws it into the machine, gets processed. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Aaron too. Which
It's like the Wonka machine.
It's like the Wonka machine.
Right.
It's cool watching Aaron go through the process too, because he's becoming more accustomed to it, but he's been like an autonomous thing, singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Just him for so long, not processing it through a machine at all, just him.
Right.
So he the song ekes out, and then he's like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that makes me wonder, because I was wondering about, him joining, and this is the first album you've done with him. And that speaks to your influence on him and him, becoming a member of the band. How has he influenced you guys?
Well, I mean, I think for one, the songs that he's brought, he's very much his own songwriter and has a really strong voice as a writer, that's very uniquely his own. Just that, putting his stamp on, kind of taking the Rangers sound, but with his voice and his physical voice, but also his writing voice,
Mm-hmm.
is a very, very new and very welcome thing. I think for the band, it adds a lot of dimension. There's certainly places where, we've asked him to sort of maybe change the way he plays like a rhythm guitar on something. And a lot of places where we've needed to like gravitate toward how he's going to play something on the guitar, which is a very new feel for us, the way he plays, and has been, once again, just a really nice sort of change in texture, change of pace.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Aaron, the songwriter. It's a big deal. Aaron, the singer, is a big deal. He's a really great singer.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is he really good, he also, it's like I've heard Graham describe it as like Aaron has some gears that the rest of us don't have as far as like power and volume. That has changed us a lot.
Interesting.
Now we get those gears because Aaron kind of facilitates it.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And then Aaron, just the person, like he in short order, like got into the band and it became, just a part of our ecosystem really well.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good friend.
Yeah, it's been great. He has not shied away from like any parts of it.
He became one of us really quickly. We were really fortunate in that way because it seemed like a good idea for a number of reasons to bring him in. The fact is, like, it's like getting married to somebody that you've never lived with before. It's like, what does that really look like a few weeks into this when you've been like sharing a space all this time? There's no way of knowing it except just doing it. And we didn't know.
Right.
Now thinking back on it, I'd have been a lot more nervous about it if I'd have really thought. We've just been really lucky, basically. It'd be great to be around.
Yeah.
And not just great to be around, but just great for us. Our system fits really well.
When you said he embraced all parts, what did that encompass?
Just like he's willing. He does interviews and he does he's been involved with like business decisions and just all so on all levels sort of what it means to be in the band. It's not like he just shows up with a guitar, plays guitar and sings.
Yeah. No, but then it's funny talking about he's used to being a solo entity and then putting it into the Rangers machine. If only because I just started working with this band, Sister Hazel, out of Gainesville, Florida, and I was talking with Ken, their lead guy, and he said, "Yeah, when I started, I was like, okay, this is your part, this is your part, this is your part," and he said it took a bit to relax and just say, okay, they all need to do their thing, and number one, it'll sound better. Number two, they'll have more of a vested interest in the song, and it becomes our song, not just my song, and.
I mean, that's how it works for us, from song to song, but especially like big picture, like within an album or within a show, the dynamic, the focus is always changing, from the show as far as who's getting featured, whether it's instrumentally or vocally.
Yeah. And then the harmonies on this one, or on this song in particular, are really cool. And I'm wondering, did you guys do those live, and how did you work out those parts? Because they're kind of sliding in and out of each other. It's really great.
Yeah, I think the lead went down live. It went down, and then we recorded all the harmonies, just kind of gathered around one big mic here in this.
Yeah, I still got the insert in there.
Yeah. So I think
the record is Save It Home, but I brought the insert.
Yeah, so we set up a large diaphragm mic. Yeah, right here, this mic here.
Okay.
And we just sort of move these chairs and just all gather around that mic in this room and sing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it kind of has its own, reverb built in with that room. And so Mike sings really loud. So he'd be over in the door of yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's kind of like a band music from Big Pink kind of vibe that you guys had going.
Yeah, definitely what we were doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we were doing. Yeah.
And then, because I also wonder about the atmosphere of a studio, because there are some places that are so cold and everything, and, it's just engineering gone wild. Yeah. And this place looks, anyways, from the photos, like a house, like a home, like, a gathering spot. Does that influence the sound, the vibe?
Massively. In this case, massively.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing you do in that situation is you build in a set of limitations, for what you can do, which is nice to just kind of, for a group with our first time kind of in this configuration to say like, well, this is what we got to work with. So, let's do it rather than just say like, throw the doors wide open and say we can do anything, which we probably feel more comfortable with now after having played together for another year and a half since we made that record. But at the time, it felt like, the band camp was the way to go. And let's just all be together in this little room and make it work. And because the band was really, we were really eager to get something out, with this band when we did this. But it was, we had been playing together for 5 months or something when we made it. So, it was all very fresh, very. Yeah.
But there must be an advantage to that. Recently I did an interview with John Pierce, who's currently the bassist with Toto.
Yeah.
And they did kind of like a COVID live album performance. And John said, yeah, that was the first time we'd all played together. And I'm like, you recorded the first time you played together? And he said, yeah, but he said, we were all so focused because it was just that sense of urgency. And I'm wondering if recording so long into this new configuration of the band gave it that more sense of focus and urgency.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was neat. I mean, we were definitely able to, I think I credit Aaron's writing as well on this record to sort of give us some different, some sort of different avenues to go down sonically. And also, with Daryl's production, the song that he brought, the Robbie Folk song he brought us to do was a great addition to the record, and him insisting that we do an instrumental, I think was really important for the band to step out and do that. So, I think it was more than urgency. It was just a feeling of like, just mining the corners of what we can do. Let's don't worry about what we've done in the past or anything like that. Let's just see what we got right now.
Yeah. And then the instrumental, it's kind of like 3 instrumentals stitched together.
Yeah.
Were all of those written to be instrumentals, or was it just, we'll just keep it this way?
They were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you use that as an opportunity to do things you couldn't do if you had to wrap it around a lyric?
It's a whole different process. I haven't thought. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that when I put together the middle tune, it needed one more part, and I wrote it to sort of echo the third tune a little bit and what it was going to do. But other than that, we chose these 3 tunes because they fit together, the way that they made a lot of sense, one next to each other once we started working with it. It took a lot of massaging to get them together. But it feels great to work on something and then, get one live takedown that's really good. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to learn and an easy one to pull off.
Yeah.
But I think we got it.
And then, I wonder on ones where you're singing lead like Hominy Valley, when you do those live, are you also playing bass live? Because you have the most unwieldy freaking instrument.
Yeah.
to play and to sing, and while doing that, it's just.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we wanted it all to be as live in the room as possible.
Yeah.
So we certainly had the opportunity to, we could have had scratch vocals, we could have had me playing bass and then, for example, have Daryl in a separate room doing scratch vocals. That would have been a way to go. But yeah, we wanted to not do that as much as possible. Some things, like for example, the harmonies on Goes to Glasgow, it was like, let's not try to do that live and put that in the room with everything else we're trying to do. But as far as me singing and playing bass, or anybody singing and playing their instrument, yeah, that was always, I think all the lead vocals, they're live just like any other instrument. Yeah.
So, that you make choices at that point, it's like, if the singer got his best version of it, and maybe your take on your solo wasn't your favorite, well, you're probably going to have to live with it.
And vice versa. And, like, I mean, maybe the lead vocal would take precedence over any given solo, probably. But if you, as the singer, like if the vibe was the best on that song and everybody feels good, you really got to live that happened. You got to live with, how it went down. And lead vocals, I would say, would be the one thing. Like, in my opinion, that would be the one thing that you might most want.
Right.
To have
a lot of control over. Oh, okay.
No, to have live. Because it would be nice to have both. That tons of control over it and make it just the way you want it, and perfect and obsess over it, and have it be like in the moment. But like thinking back on it, having it live, the way those lead vocals are, I mean, I think they would have been a lot different if they had been done after the fact. And it was the urgency of being there in that room. And like you keep coming back again and again to that place, like to be in that room with this group of people doing it the way we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You want that to be like you want your lead vocal track to be imbued with that spirit,
responding to that moment
100%.
totally.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have been
very good.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, everything. Like I'm always saying about that album. And from the beginning, if half or it's some small portion of the magic and weirdness of what that place was, the atmosphere of what we were, the experience, gets transferred to that album, that Michael would have done really well. And I think it does. It feels like the way that felt. And it felt very strong. Yeah.
Yeah. And also talking about feel, one thing I got while listening to this is it's an amazingly warm sounding record. Again, in the modern day and age where everything is, been computerized and the beats are very pogo like, kind of thing. It has a warmth. And it wasn't just because I was listening on vinyl, because there are other vinyl records which don't sound this way.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what is the secret to achieving that?
Well, I mean, the engineer Dave Cinco's like, he is the guy. I mean, he's like, for most of the stuff that, consider your really high-end acoustic stuff out of like Nashville, whether it's at the Punch Brothers or Bela Fleck or people like that, he's the guy. Mm-hmm. We had maybe the best engineer in the world for acoustic music doing it. And he had to come in and build this. I mean, we were in a living room.
Yeah.
He built the studio in, 8 hours.
Oh my God.
And, put everything together, had to find which rooms, the drums were down in the basement with a line running from the basement for separation. And he had to figure out the whole thing. So like we went over, maybe a month before we were doing it and just walked around and just videoed the whole place and sent him a video of what this place is, and clapped hands and played banjos in various corners.
Oh, wow.
Places in the house so he could hear how everything sounded. When we got there, he knew where he wanted everything to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Dave Cinco was the star. Undisputed. Like, he worked harder than anyone worked, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because he never stopped. Any given one of us could take a break.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't doing harmonies on Ghost of Glasgow.
But he was always right there.
There he was.
Mm.
Like a weird positive tool to be around. It just
really fantastic.
Yeah.
Star of the show. Looking at it, I'm like, God, I miss Dave Cinco. It's great to have her.
Yeah. But no, that's awesome, because you hear about famous producers. A lot of times people don't talk about the engineers.
Yeah, right. Well, this was so intimate. He was in the room with us that we were tracking. We were all there together.
Yeah.
And not to downplay Daryl's impact on it as a producer, because he's obviously
right.
Hugely impactful, hugely. But the engineer played. He played an active role, maybe more than he wanted to. He was. He was there.
Another song that really jumped out was Second in Line (Junior). That is some dark, heavy stuff going on. Where did that come from?
I remember where I was when I wrote it. I was taking a walk in the woods. It just seemed like a pretty nice, happy place to be. But I guess sometimes you can't help but like respond to what's in the news and, you know, the world of greed and power and all that stuff. You know, I try, you know, to balance it out in my writing, but sometimes you're just pissed off and upset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you write it, you know?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I always thought that was the advantage of music and songs is you can use these metaphors and you can talk about what's happening out in the world without getting down to details or calling out specific people. And yet everyone can identify and put themselves in it and like, oh, this is expressing this frustration I have or fear or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I mean, when you're writing a song like that, or you're like, oh, is this a little too over the line? Or is that great when you're like, hey, I'm nervous about
Barrett
this?
will tell you, I did not want to sing that on the record. I did not want to do it on the record.
But there's no
They
question.
were insistent.
Oh yeah, that worked. We were insistent.
Yeah.
He was that's my favorite.
No.
When I
Okay.
listen back to it every once in a while, that's the one that's like, that's the coolest song. It's the coolest. It just came out so great. And I thought, yeah, Graham thought it could maybe try to pass it off to somebody else. And I love about this song, there's a little bit of that like, you're so vain, you probably think this song's about you kind of thing. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
who is that song about? I'm like, I don't know. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who do you think it's about? You know?
Yeah. And then our arranger, you know, who does the symphony charts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just kind of left it up to him. We were like, what songs are you most interested in arranging from this album? And sure enough, he picks that. So I gotta say, son of a bitch in front of him.
What a treat.
What a treat.
Right. Well, that's nothing compared to the whole half sister line. You know, so
Nasty or something.
you're right. For the After Hours Steep Canyon show. Well, and then speaking of the symphony, I'm curious, how has performing with the symphony and filtering your music through them maybe influenced or changed how you look at some of your own material?
I mean, I don't think we choose songs typically that we do with the symphony that are maybe a little more interesting than your typical country song, like structurally. You know, we don't generally pick a song that's a G, C, D bluegrass song to do with a symphony. Like we generally pick the songs that have a little bit more going on. For the symphony, just because they can provide so much texture. So I think for that reason, we're a good fit for the symphony because, you know, and I think in our songs, we tend to get a little more involved than just a really, you know, your basic song structure. You know, songs will modulate, you know, do all sorts of different things like that. So I think pretty early on, it seemed like, you know, we started doing the symphony shows with Steve Martin and, you know, he writes quirky songs with lots of different little hitches and pickups in it, and you could tell pretty quickly that like that's where one of the places the symphony can really shine, sort of bringing out these little quirky moves.
Yeah, and then, but how much do you have to alter what you guys are playing to accommodate them?
Not much.
No.
Yeah, not much.
Not much. The only way that I can think of that happens is that songs develop, they evolve as we play them over the years. So any given song, it just slowly morphs or quickly morphs as we play it live over the weeks, months, years. So then, you know, it gets frozen in time with this orchestral arrangement. And then like 3 years later, we've stretched this and extended that. And we always, as with the symphony, have to find a way to shrink back to exactly what this is.
Mm-hmm.
So that requires alterations.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah, you got to think about that.
yeah.
Yeah, I did an interview with, I'm blanking on his name, a guitarist, but he did this album with Keith Emerson, where they recorded a bunch of Emerson, Lake and Palmer songs with this full orchestra.
Yeah.
And he said it was like this weird mutual admiration society. He said, because we were amazed that these people, you could put a sheet of music down in front of them that they've never seen before, and they could just immediately play it. Just, oh yeah, you know. And then when it came to our parts, they're like, well, where's your music? And like, we don't have any. And like, why? What do you do? We memorized it. You memorized all of that? You know, so both of them were like amazed at the other's skill.
Mm-hmm. The approach.
Yeah. And then speaking of live, you guys are about to release a live album.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, makes for a great live album?
In this case, it's like we thought about that a lot because we set out to do a live album.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think when we thought about it at first, we recorded a number of shows and we thought, well, we want to really represent what the band does live. That was one of the whole purposes of it. We'll pick all this great stuff from these different shows and put it together as this sampler, best moments, and it'll be rocking. And then the more we listen to this one show, we're like, well, actually, what makes a great live experience really great is like the experience itself, not chopping it up, but let's just take that one show and make it a live record the way it really happened. Really great night. And so, yeah, what makes a good live record in this case, it's like trying to capture exactly what it was like, which is what this album is.
The real range. You know, there's a lot of range in it, just like we do a show. It almost is the running order of the show, the album itself. But you know, I love to hear a live album when the band, you can tell they're really kind of out on the high wire, and like kind of responding to each other in real time and really just talking. You know, you can hear the band, you know, pushing each other, and I think there's a lot of moments like that on the record.
Yeah, you got to come to think of it. It's like that's the benefit of a live album. If it's like Song Remains the Same or Wait for Columbus or whatever, what draws me to those live albums is like getting a glimpse. It's like kind of a little bit peeking behind the curtain and getting a glimpse and getting to know the band actually a little better the way they actually really are. Yeah. So, that Allman Brothers, you know, Fillmore album. Yeah, it's just different. You get a little more of an honest depiction of who they actually are. That's exciting.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it was important for us too, because like, it's a new band. I mean, it's a new band, the way we're doing things now. And I think it was important to just capture that and put that out in the world and say, hey, this is what we are now. This is what we're doing. You know, maybe, like you said, it's one show. So you go 2 years from now, it won't be the same, but just like for the moment, like here's the.
Right. What I'm wondering is, can you put yourself in the fan's perspective with a live album? Just because I would think as the artist, you're hearing things that an average listener or fan is not hearing and tend to be a lot more critical.
Yeah.
Like I've been with bands where they're like, oh, you know, not so happy with my playing that night. And yet there's fans going, oh my God, that was an amazing experience, you know? And so how do you detach from, you know, critical musician person to, you know, is this really what a fan is going to take in?
Well, I think part of the reason we chose this show was because of the energy. You know, there's mistakes, and we left mistakes in. You know, we didn't overdub yet, so we left mistakes on the tape. You know, messed up words. You know, stuff like that. It's all on there, but I think the energy, we like just biased towards the energy, which I think is what you hear in a live record that you can really respond to.
Yeah. We had another show that we were A, B, and like, do we do this one or that one? The other one was a lot cleaner and like more accurate and less mistakes and very contained, and like we did really well. I think we said that.
Yeah, because it can be too perfect.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say too perfect.
And that one was interesting because we came off stage that night thinking, wow, and then we went back and listened to it. We're like, oh my God, really, really good.
Really good.
Like, well, we were very happy with it,
but it didn't feel good when we did it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Because you'd think you would just know or inherently, but
Well, it speaks to like how linked, just how sensitive we are to the symbiotic thing with the crowd. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, like how are we all doing here? It's like how well the show goes. Not just we could play our best, but if it seems like they're not with us for whatever reason, then it just doesn't. The thing's not happening. Right?